So welcome everyone to this ROV chat. And today Stephen and I will talk about the vital importance of lower Dantian breathing as a foundation for effective meditation practice. So just as an intro and to familiarize those of you who aren't familiar with the lower Dantian, you can think of the lower Dantian as a primary energy center in the lower abdomen. And it's often visualized as a glowing sphere in the lower abdomen. And as you breathe into the lower Dantian, become aware of your energy and your breath as expanding that sphere in the lower Dantian. And then as you exhale, that the energy concentrates in the center of the lower Dantian. That is a powerful way to focus your attention, but it also has three very dramatic effects on your consciousness. One is it gets you out of your head, out of the narrative self, out of the thinking mind, and sinks you deep into sensory awareness. So it awakens sensory awareness in the body by paying attention to these sensations of breathing in the lower Dantian. And then the second thing is that it activates your body's natural relaxation response. Taking slow, deep breaths, expanding and relaxing the lower Dantian naturally creates this relaxation response that begins in the lower abdomen and transfers through the vagus nerve up through the heart and into the brain. So you start to entrain not only your body, but also your heart and your brain with these relaxed, coherent frequencies. And then finally, there's a building of vital energy. So in subtle energy meditation, we're focused on this vital force that is flowing through all the organs and cells and connective tissue and bones of the body. And so lower Dantian breathing is a way to activate, become aware of, and gather this vital force in the lower Dantian, which is then used subsequently in the meditation to keep us awake and alert and aware, and it fuels our attention as we go into deeper and deeper states of absorption and stillness, so that we stay awake as we let go of the body and we let go of sensation and go into these more subtle states. So with that as an intro, Stephen has a story and some research to share about lower Dantian breathing. So, Stephen?
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, I was really curious about lower Dantian energies and particularly the power of chi and the way that the movement of the force in those lower chakra areas can affect not just meditation, but life in general. And this came from an interest as a young child. I was particularly interested in Japanese culture to begin with. So at age 5, my mum took me along to the local, sports club and got me involved in judo. And I was attracted to the fact that the instructor, who was a very short Japanese chap, was always saying, when you bring your energy and awareness down into this lower area of the belly, the most extraordinary things can happen. And he had demonstrated to us, he'd bring in a couple of his, large New Zealand friends, and he'd just stand there, and these big boys would try and push him over, and they couldn't budge him. They'd try everything. And this was, as a 5-year-old, this is kind of eye-boggling stuff. I thought there must be some secret to this lower energy center, whether we call it a belly or whether we call it the womb energies or whether we call it lower Dantian or the lower chakras. And it's curious from the point of awareness and meditation generally, because we tend to be hooked into awareness through the eyes and the vision most of our days. And when we kind of unhook that and shift our awareness, maybe even to the occipital, there's a definite shift in the way we perceive. And if we drop into our heart, then oh, that feels different. And then when we drop into our belly or our womb or that lower dantian, we feel, oh, that feels different again. So I started to relate the practices that I was doing in meditation with also the practices I was doing in martial arts. And I spent around 20 years doing everything: judo, aikido, karate, taekwondo, kung fu, tai chi, and so on. And every single instructor, as well as being emphasizing the importance of mindfulness and turning inwards, or they would say, you know, whether you're, because I did things like fighting in competitions and all that, and they used to say, look, the simple thing is be mindful. Sounds like the Jedi, right? Be mindful, use the source or use the force of the lower dantian area, and keep your mind in the dantian. And you know, then they'd show you things like, okay, so now we're going to break bricks or boards, you know, using that power of chi. And at first you look at it as a young kid and you think, but I'm just this scrawny little kid, and you know, you're this small but really potent Japanese, you know, how can I possibly do that? But then they show you how to harness this energy. And the remarkable thing is, as you stay focused there, as you stay with your awareness deep down in those lower chakras or in that lower dantian area, something different happens. You feel centered, you feel grounded. There's this really deep connection with the earth, with the planet. And at a certain time in your practice, when you kind of evolve in it, you definitely feel the power of the earth to support you, or the power of this ground, or the power of the energy in this, and the chi centers. So they used to get me to do things which, you know, at this point in my life, maybe I'm going to be not so adept at doing, but, you know, running and jumping over, 5 to 10 people that are crouching and breaking boards at the end for demonstration purposes. And this was all accomplished through really bringing that power of chi into the belly and being very, very centered. So you're very calm when you do this. There's no separation. You don't kind of think, okay, here's a demonstration, here's a board, here's what I've got. There's not that. You kind of go, it's a very similar process to meditation. You turn inwards, you become very calm and centered, and you simply follow through in a routine that, of course, I'd done many, many times before I did that just simply flows, and it feels like it's really pretty effortless. It looks
right.
like
you sense the whole field from the lower dantian, right? So it's actually a place from which you sense the entire field.
Right. You are so right. It is. In fact, there is actually no sense of any objects when you do this. You're just literally in this field, and you feel it pouring into you. So you know, without a shadow of doubt, it's a bit like some of the old, you know, Zojin instructions. There is a absolute single pointed, no doubt whatsoever that this will just happen, because you're connected into the field rather than being a body trying to accomplish a simple object. And so I thought to myself, well, you know, as I was going through these processes, I thought there must be some correlation to meditation, to our brainwaves between. So I was curious, and I found that in some of the research. So there's a number of studies that have been done on, for example, Shaolin Dantian breathing. And that was the same practices that I was trained in. I was trained in praying mantis kung fu, and then also sword fighter, or tai chi sword and kung fu sword. And you have to, in order to do the sword part, you have to go through many years of training to get to that point. And you realize why, because it's dangerous, and you're relying on, again, this very powerful inward process of mindfulness. So they discovered, you know, when they did took a sample of Shaolin practitioners that were really experienced in Dantian breathing, that two things happened when they investigated this power of the lower Dantian breathing. One was that there was theta coherence between the frontal and the posterior regions. So there was this beautiful theta coherence that actually made this, or the associated brain function was this very attentive state of mind. So you're very, very, the state of attention is very pristine. As you said, you're in touch with the entire field. And the other thing that they discovered was simultaneously there is this temporal alpha in the anterior region that brings about this deep relaxation, this deep relaxed state of mind. And I thought, you know, that it makes total sense that this was very much how I experienced those kinds of demonstrations of using chi, was really alert. And you're not just alert for the demonstration, but you're alert in all areas of the field. It feels like you're in. Plus, there's this deep relaxation. You're not doing it from the. I never ever, you know, would jump, run, and do a demonstration like that from a state of tension. You literally relax. You're literally running, and your body's in a flow. Feels like a piece of music, actually, or more like a melody that's being played, and you jump, and it's very effortless. And in fact, you never feel. I've never felt a board or a brick ever breaking, because you just simply, there's not that subject-object awareness. There's just something, an attunement to the field. The chi energy pours through, and there is this effortless flow. So I thought that was really interesting research about both the theta and the alpha effects as a result of this lower Dantian breathing. And I thought that that was a really powerful point to make for those people, you know, that are listening, that for all of you that do meditation, is really spending time in that lower Dantian breathing practice is something that gets you in touch with. Perhaps during the day, you tend to, you know, breathe from this area. If you're a singer, perhaps you're maybe a little bit more accustomed to breathing in the lower diaphragm, but otherwise, there's not a strong association with it during the day, unless you really do engage in these sort of practices. So that was a very useful and very powerful insight for me about the power of chi. And it was the same in a lot of the healing practices I did too, is that I found the power of the chi when you work with someone, it flows through. There is this really deep connection with that lower Dantian area. So anyway, that was just a story I wanted to share, plus some of the research that's always made me most curious, because I thought if it has this kind of effect on consciousness, it must be having a really profound effect in the brain to some extent or another.
Right, and it's a portal, right, to this, as we're talking about, to this sense of connection with the whole field. And so that when we're doing something like Tai Chi, or doing a Tai Chi sword, or Judo, or anything that is centered, where the awareness is centered in the lower Dantian, the mind is as if the field is doing it. It's not you doing it, but the field is doing it. And that's exactly where we're headed in the deeper states of meditation, that it's life itself that is meditating. It's the field itself that is doing the meditation. And we've let go of all these personal boundaries and these thought structures and these identifications, so that it's life itself, it's the field, it's awareness itself, which is the meditator.
It's beautifully said, Kevin. Awareness is literally guiding us. Yes, beautifully said.
Thank you, Stephen, for this chat.
Thank you, Kevin. That was really wonderful. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
And we really encourage you to spend some time with that deep lower Dantian breathing. Feel the energy there, and then through that, feel your connection to all of life. Thank you for your practice.